You are listening to Regenerative Artivism, Asian Women's Creative Strategies for Social and Ecological Futures. I'm your host, Meiqing Wang. This is a brief closing note for Season 1. If you joined partway through the season, here is the simplest way to describe what we have been doing together. We have been practicing a way of paying attention, not the fast attention of headlines and crises, but the slow attention that lets you notice how people actually live inside the damaged conditions and how they keep choosing care anyway. In the introduction to this series, I began with an image of a threatened valley and the community energy of the Mainong Yellow Butterfly Festival. I chose that example because it reminds us that regeneration is not one victory that stays won. It's an ongoing practice. It has to be renewed, taught, argued over, and carried forward by people who are tired, busy, and still showing up. Across the season, we stayed close to the kinds of places that rarely get treated as important cultural sites: classrooms, farms, creeks, kitchens, improvised studios, local laws, and the ordinary rooms where people gather to make decisions. We listen to art that does not always look like art at first glance. We listen to art as pedagogy, where the point is not a masterpiece, but a child learning to see their own environment with clarity and affection. We listen to art as ecological practice, where farming, attention to soil, and living with non-human rhythms become a way to resist the speeding up of extraction and displacement. We listen to art as institutional friction, where the question is whether a museum can stop performing culture as a distant product and start behaving like a neighbor, accountable to the people living next door. We listen to soil as both material and moral witness, where ritual, research, and public outreach insist that the ground under our feet is not inert and not endlessly available for sacrifice. And we listen to weaving after the storm, where repair is not only metaphor but method, and where making becomes a way to return to community after loss. If I had to name the core lesson of Season 1, it would be this: regenerative work is rarely glamorous. It's not only about visionary futures. It's also about maintenance, endurance, and the quiet skill of staying in relationship. That is a hard message, but it's also an encouraging one, because it means regeneration is not reserved for heroes. It belongs to people who practice with others over time. So before we step into Season 2, I want to offer 3 listening takeaways you can carry forward. First, regeneration has a timescale. Many of the practices we heard this season move at the speed of trust, teaching, and seasonal return. If you try to evaluate them using the tempo of social media or institutional programming cycles, you will miss what they are doing. Second, regeneration is relational. Even when the work begins with land or water or soil, it keeps turning into questions about how people treat one another. Who is included? Who is listened to? Who is exhausted? Who is allowed to belong? Third, regeneration is infrastructural. Even when the work looks intimate and small, it always depends on conditions, a room to meet in, a rhythm of gathering, a way to archive memory, a method of teaching, a way to share food, a way to make accessibility real rather than symbolic. Season 1 has been pointing toward that idea all along. Which brings me to what comes next. Regenerative Artivism will return on April 21st, 2026, after a 1-month break to reset and prepare the next run of episodes, with a short Season 2 trailer. A brief Season 2 introduction follows on May 5th, and the first full episode arrives on May 19th. Season 2 stays anchored in the Greater China region and asks a direct question: what makes regenerative work last. Across 6 episodes, we will focus on the infrastructures that hold regenerative practice in place, art spaces built like ecologies, mutual aid rooms that double as neighborhood archives, disability-led platforms that treat access as creative grammar, and community storytelling practices that metabolize grief without isolating people from one another. If Season 1 helped us listen to regenerative artivism as practice, Season 2 will help us listen to the enabling conditions, the scaffolding, the habits, and the ethics that make care durable. One last invitation before we pause. If there was an episode that stayed with you, I hope you will share it with one person. The single act is its own kind of infrastructure. It's how a small project becomes a living conversation. And if you are listening on a platform where reviews help others find the show, a brief rating or a few sentences makes a real difference, especially for independent public scholarship like this. Thank you for listening through Season 1. Thank you for giving your attention to work that is often overlooked, and to the women who keep building futures in places that have often been treated as expendable. I will meet you on April 21st.